Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Queen Cunt. First of all, I want to say I hope everybody had a safe and happy holiday. Christmas, New Year's. I hope you all enjoyed it and it was safe, and I hope nobody drank and drove. Secondly, I want to refer to the hate comments that I'm already receiving on my channel. IDGAF. I know a lot of them got a lot of dislikes. I'm posting strictly books from now on, but I don't care. Those of you who want to find my content and enjoy it will, and the rest of you can go kick rocks for all I care. Now that that's out of the system, it's going to be a long chapter, so let's get started. The first book I'm going to post for the new year is Ryland J's Behind the Pain. I know it's been posted a few times, but I don't think it's posted enough. Even if you don't like the band itself, the story is something of a memoir. So sit back, grab your weed, grab a snack, and enjoy. I will be posting one chapter at a time because these chapters are fairly long, so. Chapter 1, The Butterfly. Outside of my mom's netting, the first thing I remember was my real dad, Richard Bruce, building a haunted house in our backyard. I must have been 2 years old at the time. My brother Rob, my sister Teresa, and I explored all through the haunted house, which he had built out of blankets and shit like that. He recorded this tape of his voice saying, I'm over here, find me, I'm over here. He hid the tape player under some blankets. We crawled around through this haunted house, all dark and scary, until we found the tape and realized it wasn't really him. To me, that was the shit. The only time I remember about other thing I remember about my real dad, Rick, was him throwing a TV set at my mom. She was sitting at the bottom of the stairs and he was at the top. They were arguing. He disappeared from the top of the staircase, came back with a TV set and threw it at my ma. She had to pull me out of the way as it came crashing down. That is the very last memory I have of my real dad. I can't believe that I actually remember something that happened when I was only 2 years old, but I do. Them times must have really been major incidents for me to still remember them now. After that, Rick and my ma, Linda, officially split up. The last thing they did together was to pull all the money out of their joint bank account so they could divide it up and go their separate ways. Going out to drive away, Rick suddenly grabbed all the money from my mom's hands, jumped in his homie's car, and just took off. That was the last Ma ever seen of him. He never paid for no child support or nothing. My mom was just left assed out. That's why if I ever meet my real dad again nowadays, I have no choice but to whip his ass. Leaving his kids forever never bothered me at all. I was a happy-ass kid without his ass around. Snatching that money from my mom's hands, though, and leaving her to struggle trying to find money to feed us, that calls for an ass-kicking in my book. And this is my fucking book. Even if I don't ever see him until he's like 80, I have no choice but to beat his old ass. I'll fucking monkey flip his ass out of his wheelchair. With my real dad gone, we were mad poor, but we lived in a pretty nice suburb of Detroit called Berkeley. It was just off 11 Mile Road, which is about 3 miles north of Detroit, in Oakland County. My mom worked nights in Birmingham, Michigan as a church janitor. So while she was gone, we were like stray dogs out there. But I didn't care. I have no complaints. I fucking loved all of it. When my mom worked the late shift, that just made me allowed out until she got home, which was the bomb diggity. I hate it when people front like, oh, I was raised so poor. It was horrible as a little kid. That's bullshit in my eyes. I think being broke ass poor It doesn't really affect you until you get to middle school and high school. That's when other kids notice you have shitty clothes on and you're gripping a piece together bike and some dirty ass $15 track shoes. At the elementary school level of life, though, you don't really give a fuck if you're poor. Nobody does. Nobody notices dumb shit like that. All you really care about is playing, adventure, pretending, and all that fresh ass little kid shit that comes for free in life. During the summertime, my mom would drop us off with Mary Wool. I guess Mary was somehow our summer babysitter. I don't know where or how my mom met her, but I remember this lady was a fucking witch. This bitch was straight out of hell. She was pure evil. Today, as a grown-ass ninja, I look back in awe at what an evil bitch that lady was to us little ass kids. I'm sure she's still a horrid bitch today, if she's still alive and hasn't fucked off yet. If she is alive, I hope her two old ass droopy eyeballs that are hanging off her cheeks are reading this right now through her dusty ass cracked old lady spectacles, just so I can tell her to eat shit and die already. My mom would drop us off over there at 8 in the morning when she went to work and pick us up around 6 when she got off. Mary's idea of daycare would be to leave us outside all day in this fucking fenced in dirty backyard. On the hot days, my brother, sister, and me used to dare each other to go up and ask Mary Wolf for a drink of water. If we did, she would just bitch about it. Sometimes she'd fucking squirt the hose at us. Like I said, she was a witch. I don't think my mom really ever knew how bad this lady was. I mean, she knew that Mary Wolf was a bitch and all, but I don't think she ever really knew just how bad she was. Even if she did, there was nothing she could really do. My mom was even more broke now, with my dad gone, being a janitor and raising 3 kids alone. She didn't have the funds to hire us a Mary Poppins lady, so a Mary Wool had to do. When I say there wasn't anybody else to watch us, I mean literally there was nobody else to watch us. My mom had no other choice but the Mary Wool hellhole. My grandma, Delilah Grover, couldn't watch over us because she was always ill. She was in and out of an insane asylum for the whole second half of her life. The way my mom explained it, when my grandma was in her 20s, right after she had her kids, things went bad for her. She was really beautiful and people used to stare at her a lot. She began to become paranoid over it all. Eventually, everyone constantly staring at her and talking about her under their breath. She just went insane from it. Flat out paranoid schizophrenic, I guess. She'd come home every weekend, but she'd just be mad, doped up, not saying anything that made any sense. She was she usually would just sit in this big red chair and smile at us. She died about 15 years ago. My mom says that my grandma is now super happy in heaven because her soul is finally free from her sick mind and body. My grandpa, Val Grover, couldn't watch over us back then either. He was way too busy working his ass off all the time. He constantly worked. He was a great person. From the time his wife got sick and went away until she died, he stayed with her. He never left her for nothing. My grandpa was the fucking bomb. He used to teach golf and do landscaping. He worked hard right up until he died about 3 years ago. Some consider him a local Detroit area golfing legend. The only other family we had were my 2 uncles. They both were busy living their own separate lives, and neither one had time to watch over us. Now, my mom's 2 brothers couldn't possibly be any more different from each other. First, you got my Uncle Larry. He worked in his way through college, and has in my eyes schooled it in life. He is very bit of what you would call a model citizen, a good family man. He was always known as Rich Uncle Larry to us because he would always help my mom out with $80 here or $100 there. He saved our asses many times when I was a kid. He seemed so rich to us back then. Now that I'm grown, I realize the only reason Uncle Larry seemed so rich to us back then was because he wasn't on welfare like the rest of us. He wasn't really rich at all. He was just chillin'. Then you got my other uncle, Uncle Steve. He was pretty much the crazy ass gone wrong. He did an 8-year prison bid for robbing a gang of 7-Elevens when I was a kid. He was a drug addict with a gat. When he got out after his long 8, he came to live with us for a while on the tether. He was always ripping off my grandma, pa, my mom, and just always giving everybody hell. He still rips us off. He even ripped me off a few years ago when I gave him two of each of all our CDs, t-shirts, and every other kind of ICP merchandise we had. He said he wanted it all to start his official ICP memorabilia collection, so I gave him a fat-ass box of shit. 2 days later, a friend of ours from a local record store called us up and said some crackhead older guy was just up there trying to sell him his complete two of everything ICP collection. That bastard, Uncle Steve. Now that you're familiar with my entire family, hopefully you realize why we were stuck with Mary Woll. There just wasn't anybody else to watch us. My mom knew we hated her, so every time she came home sick from work or something, she'd always come to get us from Mary's house with a quickness. If we complained about Mary Woll, all she'd say was, "There's nothing I can do about it. I don't know who else to get." She was telling the truth. There really was nobody else. Rob, Teresa, and I tried to make the best of it in that fenced-in backyard. The only good part was this brown dog from across the street. On some days he would dig a hole under his fence when he heard us playing, and he would make his way over to us to hang out. Then, at the end of the day, we would return the dog, fill in the hole that he dug, and say goodbye. We would do our best to hide the dog from Mary Witch-Ass Woll because he was the best thing we had going on for us over there. We loved him, and that would have been reason enough for her to put a stop to it. The rest of the time was passed with the help of our imaginations. We'd find an old lawnmower or something and we'd be like, "Let's turn this into an airplane, you guys. Let's actually build an airplane." And we thought for sure, 100%, we could actually do that, you know? Dreams that would last a day long. The fact is that children will be children no matter where you put them. We still managed to gain some pretty fresh-ass lifelong memories out of that yard. One time a big June bug landed right there on the dirt in the middle of us. We all sat around and stared at that crusty ass fucking June bug. You know those ones you see stuck to the side of trees? It's one of them things that you only notice when you're a little kid, like anthills and caterpillars. When was the last time you actually saw a caterpillar? Or a crusty ass June bug shell stuck to the side of a tree? When you're a little ass kid, you notice that stuff because it's all you got going on. So that shit matters. This June bug looked like it was about to die, yet it was crawling on the ground. It was old, wicked looking, and crusty like a little ugly ass monster. Then all of a sudden a split cracked right up its own back. It was crawling out of itself. We were tripping out. To any adult, I'm sure we just looked like some kids huddled around playing in the dirt right then. But fuck that, we were witnessing something worth watching that day. Slowly but surely, this beautiful yellow and green fucking bug climbed right out of its own old crusty ass and left nothing but an old dead shell of its former self. We sat around and watched this whole thing happen. It took hours. I thought that shit was the freshest thing I'd ever seen. When it was all over with, the beautiful yellow and green bug expanded its new, strong wings and flew off, probably to go kill some other bug and eat it. The whole shit was awesome, but soon after that, things were back to normal in that yard. That bug flew off like zzz, see ya, zzz, wouldn't want to be ya, zzz. Let me tell y'all, this Mary Wool lady, there was some bullshit going on in that house. She had two kids, Chris and Ricky Wool, who were right around our age. My brother Rob and I hated playing with them. See, they had this fucked up habit of unzipping their pants and waggling their dicks at us, then chasing us around like that. We figured they were that way because of their mom, Mary Wool, was a heroin addict looking skinny bitch with tattoos on her wrists. Remember, this was 20 years ago when moms just didn't have tattoos on their wrists and shit like that. One day, when my mom was picking us up, I asked her about Mary's tattoos. "What's that weird writing on Mary Wool's little chicken wrist about, Mom?" "Don't ask questions like that," she said. After what would finally be After what would wind up happening to what's the result of knowing the Wolf family, I kind of wish we had known more about them then, so that I could have killed them all off and most likely gotten away with it because of my youth. Attention! Thugs, killers, and mass murderers. Everybody sit down in a circle around me. It's special emotional time. In this part of the book, I'm going to talk about two major childhood memories that really don't have anything to do with anything at all. They are just too important not to be included. If you're not interested in listening to me babble about life and emotional shit, just skip past these next few pages. For everybody else, here it goes. Before my mom met my second dad, that's how I remember my childhood. By what dad I was with at the time. Two truly magical things happened that still live with me today. They were both major events of my childhood, and that's why I want to share them with you. Major childhood moment number one. The first thing happened when my brother Rob and I were running around in my mom's front yard in Berkeley. He was 6. I was 4, and we were chasing one of those colorful, humongous-ass butterflies. Suddenly, my brother started screaming, "Joe, Joe, I caught it!" Rob had actually caught the butterfly. I was pretty shocked. So was he. So was the butterfly, I'll bet. I don't really know how it happened, but I guess he jumped off the porch and actually cupped it in his hands midair. "It's prying my hands open, it's so big," he yelled. "Get the jar, get the jar." We had a jar with holes poked in the top, which we always kept on our porch, because we'd always catch shit like grasshoppers or praying mantises, anything fresh. We put this giant butterfly in the jar and we sat there staring at it. Wow, it was mad powerful looking. We noticed it had fur on its wings in all kinds of colors. It didn't even seem like an insect. It seemed more like a bird. We felt really guilty about having it in our jar, like we caught somebody's dog. We said to each other, "Look, man, we're just gonna have this butterfly spend one night at our house, and we'll let it go in the morning because this is way too big and beautiful to keep. Besides, we don't know what it eats or anything. We have to let it go." We agreed. Just as soon as we got up the next morning, we'd let it go. That night, it would be our guest. We just wanted to hang out with it for a night. We poked extra holes in the jar lid and put a screen over it to hook it up more. We had a fan in our bedroom because it was mad hot, and we put the jar right in front of the fan. The butterfly was our guest, and we wanted it to be extra comfortable. We tried to sleep, but we kept hearing the butterfly's wings hitting the glass of the jar, like it was talking to us. It was the shit. We were mad excited. Next morning, all we could hear was the fan. My brother and I looked at each other in horror, then looked back at the jar. The butterfly was dead. We were straight up crushed. Right there, brother. We started fucking bawling our eyes out. We felt like we just murdered somebody. Actually, I guess we did. That sucked bad. So here's what we did. We dug a grave in the space between our house and the one next door. It was already a cemetery of sorts because this cat across the street was always killing birds and mice and shit. We would find the bodies of these animals and bury them in that area. This There was this place across the street that sold potato chips in a big metal can, so we got an empty one and made it into the butterfly's final resting place. We put a little couch in there made out of napkins and popsicle sticks, and all kinds of other cool shit. With tears in our eyes, we placed the can in the grave and filled in the dirt on top of it. We felt so bad. We made a vow right then and there, a vow that we continue to live by today. One day we will make it to heaven so that we can make sure the butterfly made it, and so that we can apologize to that butterfly face to face. If insects are not allowed in heaven, then we would ask to change that policy on the butterfly's behalf. Now, if you look at every single ICP album and EP, what does it say in the credits? Dedicated to the butterfly. It's right on the inside of my left arm, a big tattoo of a butterfly, also dedicated to the butterfly. I dedicate every major accomplishment of my life to the butterfly. I do this to remind myself of our important vow. We must both keep on track all the way through life. I'll tell you why. Because back then, that day, burying that butterfly, feeling the way we did, my brother and I were like two clean cloths. unpolluted yet by life, pure and true. When we made that vow, we were the real untouched Joe and Rob Bruce. It was from the heart. As we go through life, we adapt to what goes on in this world and what it teaches us. Other people in life teach you things like, hey man, don't hang out with girls unless you're trying to fuck them, dude. Or, what are you hanging out with those black kids for? The more you come in contact with other people, the dirtier you get. When you're a child, you only go by your heart, because that's all you know. As I grew up, I remind myself out loud, I made that vow when I was as pure as could be, before the world got me, when the only thoughts I had were the thoughts that were my own and in my heart. I cannot let the world fuck me up so bad that I lose faith in that vow. As I write this, I'm fucked up. I'm very, very dirty from the world. One day, I have to return to that innocent, pure thing I once was, so that when I die, I can apologize to the butterfly. That's what dedicated to the butterfly means. That's exactly what I intend to do. Okay, let me just put it to you like this. If I was sitting on a public bus next to an old lady, and I said a cuss word like fuck out loud, she'd probably be offended. She might even make her face and say something about it. Well, don't think she didn't spend her life sucking on dicks, being human, and cussing herself, right? The only difference between her and I is that now she's returned to that pureness she once had as a child. She's been all the way around the block. She's probably seen it all before, and now she doesn't even want to hear the word fuck. She wants to be clean again. There was a time when she was swigging booze, fucking around, tossing salad, sucking some guy's dick at a dance, and all that. Now she has cleaned herself of that craziness. The old people you and I don't care about, those are the wisest fucking people out there. They're the ones who've seen it all. They've tasted both styles of life. And now in their old age, they choose pureness because they're wise. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the butterfly. I'm almost done. Just listen. Everything I do that I care about is dedicated to the butterfly. I take something so filthy, so raunchy, and so devoted to hate and revenge and anger like my albums, and I stamp dedicated to the butterfly on them, because that was Joe Bruce who made that vow. Today's Joe Bruce wouldn't make that vow, but the future Joe Bruce will, and I will become him again one day in the future. Just don't say fuck next to me on a bus when I'm 90, you might get my cane upside your melon. Major childhood moment number 2. This is the other magical thing that happened. Just a year after the butterfly incident, there was this kid in the neighborhood named Mark Walensky. He was older, probably 10. He had around a foot on us in height, and he always walked around with a crew of bullies. We were terrified of him. He was a little baby thug. He was a troublemaker, too. He once set a garage on fire and bragged about it. He only got away with it because he was too young to get prosecuted for it. And his parents were so white trash they didn't care. They didn't give a fuck. Luckily for my sister Teresa, she was always off hanging with her girlfriends at Skate World or something. Rob and I hung out on our block with assholes like Mark. Mark was always beating somebody up, usually my brother and I. A bunch of times I'd be riding on my bike and he'd stop me and be like, "Get off your bike." He'd throw me off my bike and take it. He'd make me chase him around before finally giving it the infamous ghost ride. That's when a bully takes your bike from you, rides it as fast as he can, and hops off it. Then you have to sit there and watch your bike race on the block with nobody riding it. All you can do is watch it smash into something, usually a tree or a car, sometimes a wall of sorts. You just have to hope your bike ain't too badly fucked up afterwards. Many of my childhood bikes were casualties of ghost rides. Now my mom hadn't married her second husband yet, and we were still poor as fuck. She was still a janitor, but to make extra money, she started watching this rich family's kids. When their family went to Boston that summer, they wanted to bring my mom along to watch their kids. It wasn't a vacation or anything, but we were pretty excited about Mom getting to go to Boston. My mom had never been out of Michigan, so it was a big deal for her and us. We ran around the neighborhood for months telling everybody, "My mom's going to Boston, my mom's going to Boston." So everybody knew my mom was going to Boston. Because of our big little mouths, everybody knew she'd left $50 with me, my brother insisted to buy food with. That was like millions. We're talking pizza every night and ice cream, chips and dip, root beer floats, all of that. We bragged about it to everybody that would listen. Right after my mom left for Boston, my brother and I were in our front yard. Who came around? Mark Walensky. He walked right up to us. Hey, what's up, you guys? My brother and I were really nervous because suddenly he was being mad cool. We tried to be cool too. What's up, Mark? I said, hoping to save my new Huffy from a treacherous ghost ride. What are you guys doing, man? You want to go do something? We were so nervous and marked out, we just said sure. After a few hours, Mark got an idea. Hey, ask if I can spend the night. Well, my mom's not here, I said. Yeah, I know. Ask your babysitter if I can spend the night. It'll be fun as hell. I heard you guys got chips and dip and everything. Rob and I were still sort of dazed. We were scared to death. We didn't want Mark Walensky's fat ass eating all our chips and dip and everything, but we were too scared to tell him no. So we went to our babysitter and straight up lied to her. Hey, this is Mark Walensky, I said. He spends the night all the time. My mom knows him. Truth is, my mom would have killed me if she had knew a delinquent like Mark Walensky was spending the night at our house. The next thing we know, Mark was knuckle deep in our French onion dip, spending the night, eating all our pizza and everything else we bought. We even had sparklers. It wasn't even near a holiday, but he was having fun with them. He was the only one having any fun. We were still scared of him, almost as scared as we were of my mom finding out he spent the night. Then something happened that night that changed everything. Actually, it changed everything for the rest of my life. We had our blankets set up on the floor at the top of the staircase with all the lights off. We were trying to whisper to each other in the dark, but the babysitter could still hear us and she was getting pissed. Be quiet, you guys. All right, we said and kept right on talking. We heard her close the door, still pissed, I'm sure. All of a sudden, a pitch-black head, came up the stairs in the dark. Then shoulders, totally fucking silent. A black oil figure was walking up the stairs. It was dark in the room, but this figure was pitch-black dark. We could make it out as clear as anything. Now, we should have been pissing root beer floats into our underoos, but the only way I can explain it is that I wasn't the least bit scared. Neither was my brother Rob. It was more like 20,000 levels of excitement, just like when you bungee jump. Like when you first hit air, like holy shit. The figure walking up the stairs right in front of us. My brother and I were screaming, but the most amazing thing was this. Mark Lewinsky couldn't see it. He didn't know what the fuck was going on. What are you guys looking at? He asked. What is it? He couldn't see it. The shape continued up to the top of the stairs, walked all the way up, and turned right toward us. Mark Lewinsky still didn't see a fucking thing. My brother and I couldn't make out its face, but we knew it was looking at us. Clear as day, we knew exactly what it was. It was kind of like we knew who it was right when we first saw his head coming up the stairs. It was God. No question, no doubt in my mind, it was God. Fuck you if you don't believe me. We know what we saw that night. G.O.D. Diggity himself, the holy roller thunderbowler. Funky, fresh in the freaky flesh, God, baby. He turned and raised his arms, then put them down and slowly floated back down the stairs. Just from that one gesture, we knew the shape was saying, it's all right. My brother and I were so fucking scared all night, so nervous about Mark Lewinsky. It was like God came over to us two innocent-ass kids and was like, I know you're scared, but it's all right. After that, didn't give a fuck about Mark Lewinsky. I was like, you didn't see it, you can't see it, haha, you couldn't see it. I wasn't afraid of anything. I wish you all could see the goosebumps on my arms right now just from writing this. Even though I would have a more involved spiritual encounter later in life, that was the absolute greatest moment of my life. A miracle had happened. We'd seen God and heard him say so much without even saying a word. Fuck Mark Lewinsky. Fuck everything scary. Nothing is scary in the presence of God. When my mom finally came back from Boston, we ran outside and started hugging her. We wouldn't let her get out of the car. We were all crying and telling her what happened. That we had Mark Lewinsky spend the night, but God came over and told us not to be scared. My mom saw us crying and she started crying too. Everybody was crying. The only person not crying was Mark Lewinsky, who quickly returned to his old self again. Within a few days, the same old neighborhood bully dickhead was back in effect. He caught me coming back from the party store a few weeks later and thanked me for the chips and dip with a good old ghost ride for my Huffy. It was all good. My mom knew we weren't lying. We told our grandpa to and everybody else who would listen. We didn't need to hear anybody give us props for what we had seen. Seeing what we had seen was props enough. A lifetime worth of props as far as I'm concerned. My mom was always religious and she did work at a church. I was 5 years old and this kind of shit was already happening to me. First our bout of the butterfly, then God coming over and telling Rob and I everything's going to be okay. And you wonder why I think the Dark Carnival is so real. Everybody's got a fucked up childhood. I'm convinced of that. Everybody has tons of heartbreaking stories about how bad they had always had it while growing up, especially us rappers. I hate when people tell their fucked up sad childhood stories to anyone who will listen, because most people tell them just to get attention. It's almost like they're just trying to get props for it. Well, fuck that. I ain't trying to do nothing but be real. I'm telling my fucked up stories in this book only because they happened to me, and they are a part of my history. They got me here today. That's it, guys. That is the end of chapter 1. I will be posting this shortly, and I hope you guys all enjoy it. And have a terrific night and rest of your day. Peace.